Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Oakland Voices, a town hall on our right to communicate. And to start us off this evening, I'd like to welcome to the stage Oakland's Youth Poet Laureate, Obasi Davis, who will perform a piece he prepared especially for tonight's event titled, "The Skin the Sun Gave Me."
Hi everybody, I'm Obasi Davis, the Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. You can follow me on Twitter at Obasi Davis and like the Facebook page at Facebook/Youth Poet Laureate. Black is something I have been since birth. The word carries with it an enormous weight, oftentimes bone-crushing, but I'd like to worship it as freedom. The media has turned my identity into chains, shackling me to the shadows of slavery, a reality I've been running from. What if you weren't brainwashed by white supremacy? What if you weren't brainwashed by white supremacy? Projecting insecurities onto you through television screens and radio stations, images of black men degrading themselves litter the nightly news. In your subconscious, I am dangerous. I pillage bodies and pile bones, a criminal, a waste birthed from a wasteland. There are reasons these thoughts fester. Reasons why mothers hurry their children across the street when I walk by, why doors click shut in sight of savage. Does the Africa in my eyes scare you? If so, I do not apologize. You should. I am a son of sun, raised in the eye of my father, groomed in the arms of my mother. I am not ashamed of what I am, but it is hard when everyone assumes me heathen, assumes me violent and deadly, assumes me enemy. On the news, only two black men exist, the athlete and the criminal, not always separated. White men want us to grow up blind to opportunity, feeling our ways down paths of ignorance. They've wanted us to wallow in ignorance and swallow our pride, not knowing how bulimic we can be as children. It is an ancient, haunting tale that dark demons hide in the shadows only to venture forth when the lights wink off. As we grow out of our immature paranoia, we grow into a subconscious fear of dark. Associating black with evil is an ancient practice. White is holy, worshipped. Black is tainted and sour, shunned. In my reality, I am no thief, nor drug dealer, nor gangster. I am a poet, a child of Oakland. I know my people's pride. I carry it every day. All I believe in is love, yet I am still met with hate. My darkness is my beauty. I am not afraid of the skin the sun gave me, but what if I was what you thought I was? If I proved your insecurities right, would it make you any less bigot? Any less pawn in oppressive cycle? Would it make me any less human? Any less object of hate? What if I was the opposite? Would I still scare you? Thank you.
Obasi Davis. Thank you so much, Obasi. That was amazing. Obasi is very accomplished. In addition to being the Youth Poet Laureate for the city of Oakland, he also founded a local cultural arts group called Young, Gifted, and Black. And I should mention that the Youth Poet Laureate program is led by the Oakland Public Library in collaboration with cultural and education organizations throughout the city of Oakland. And I think we should give it up for them for supporting young talent in the way that they do. Obasi, thank you for sharing. We can't think of a better way to kick off Oakland Voices, a town hall on our right to communicate. So welcome everyone. My name is Chance Williams, and I am part of the team at Free Press, and I will also be your MC this evening. Thank you. Free Press is dedicated to our rights to connect and communicate. And at the heart of that mission is the idea that people should be at the center of policy conversations when it comes to media and telecommunications. So tonight is a very, very good representation of that, and we're very excited about it. We're proud to sponsor this event with our partners at the Center for Media Justice. Together, we founded Voices for Internet Freedom over 3 years ago. And we're also pleased to have our core partners in Voices, the National Hispanic Media Coalition and ColorOfChange, with us this evening. It is an amazing partnership, and we are so happy that we were able to come together on tonight's event. And you'll hear from all of those organizations throughout the evening. As you all can see, we have a very packed house. And I want to give a special shout out to the folks that didn't make it in or in the overflow room. We're with you. And also welcome everyone who is joining us online. We are streaming at internetvoices.org. And we also encourage everyone to join us on Twitter at #OaklandVoices. Get in the conversation. And there are some Voices folks in the room. If we have some signs, can we hold them up right now? Excellent. So tonight represents a unique opportunity because we are joined by a special guest, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, Mr. Tom Wheeler. It's been over 5 years. It's been over 5 years since the entire FCC has faced the public in a community town hall. Mr. Wheeler took over at the FCC just over 2 months ago, and already he is at his first community town hall event. We appreciate you for doing that, and we are so happy to welcome you here this evening. We hope that this is the first of many town halls for you, and we hope that the voices that you hear this evening carry forward as you make decisions at the FCC. So thank you so much for being with us. Tonight, we are going to hear from artists, from policymakers, from community leaders, and so many of you in the room, not all of you in the room. There will not be time for everyone to get to the microphone, but your voices are important, so we want to make sure your comments are captured. Everyone should have a sheet at their seat where they can fill out comments, and we will make sure that those are delivered to the FCC so they hear what you have to say. So Oakland tonight is about your voices. And to help welcome us this evening, I'm going to introduce a very powerful and inspiring Oakland voice, a leader in the fight for media justice, and the executive director of the Center for Media Justice, Malkia Cyril.
I'm short, though. I'm short. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. So first of all, some of you know me from The Line, where my second job is as a bodyguard. I try to have more than one job at a time, you know, keeps me busy. First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you, Oakland. I have some prepared remarks, but before I get into them, I want to say two things. One, this is not an FCC hearing. This is a community town hall featuring a speaker from the FCC. Now let's talk about the difference between the two. An FCC hearing is where the FCC plans and coordinates and makes that happen. A community town hall is when the community plans it, the community makes it happen, and they invite wonderful speakers to come talk to you. Can I give it up? Can I get that? We did that. We did that. So tonight is about change. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. And I hope that you can see me because I'm about as tall as this thing here. So every night when I go to sleep, a system of nerves and synapses keep my lungs breathing and my heart beating. That same nervous system tells my body when and how to wake up to see another day. A healthy nervous system claims its human right to communicate as a given. There are no barriers to the stories it tells, nor does it ever misrepresent reality. A healthy nervous system transmits critical information, inspires emotion, alerts us to danger, frames our beliefs, and connects hands and feet, our head to our heart. Just as an individual body needs a working communication system to survive, so does a collective body politic. For all people, everywhere. Culture is the nervous system of politics and economy. Whether you're talking about the news, your favorite primetime television show, telephones, radio, or digital platforms, our telecommunication systems is charged with connecting and representing the collective body politic. And yes, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about all of us. All of us here in Oakland, all of us throughout the Bay Area, all of us throughout California, throughout the United States, but not only the United States, I'm talking about us all over the world. Our telecommunication system is supposed to represent us. But here in Oakland, in cities like Oakland, cities that are mostly brown and black, cities that are often poor and working class, cities that are predominantly young, cities where there are lots of women, where there are lots of migrants, where English is not always the first language. In those cities, too many of us suffer on the sharp double edge of misrepresentation on the one hand and the need to amplify our public voice for change on the other. Just 5 years ago, 1 in 25 houses were foreclosed on in Oakland, and we're still losing our homes every day. In the Bay Area, approximately 20% of us are living at or below the poverty level. That includes 3 out of every 10 Oakland children. Now, our communities are in crisis, yet despite our best efforts to echo truth in the halls of power, the official stories about Oakland frequently neglect inequities and focus on the episodic incidents of crime and violence. If you feel me, let me hear you say yes. Yes. Too often, the stories of our communities coming together to help each other, to change our conditions, to protect ourselves from harmful technologies and harmful policies go untold. But tonight, I promise you, we will be heard. Oakland, like many cities like it, is no stranger to negative media stereotypes. This pattern of misrepresentation isn't the result of a handful of bad journalists. It's the result of a media that is being systematically gutted by corporate interests and often left too unprotected by regulators. Right now, there are no African American owners of a full power television station anywhere in the country. The vast majority of those without broadband access are poor. They are people of color. They are young. Our right to communicate is threatened by those who want to gut the Lifeline program, interfere with web traffic to boost profits, block community ownership of broadband, disinvest in our public media, raise our cable prices, and allow big media companies to bypass rules the rest of us have to follow. If you feel me, let me hear you say yes. Yes. Now that's just wrong. That ain't right. The bills are too high. You remember that. And we're paying the price, and the price is greater than the price in our pockets. Just as our physical bodies serve to protect our nervous system, the people right here are here to stand beautifully strong in defense of an affordable, accessible, and accountable media. We know that to stop the dismantling of the human family, to win quality jobs, education, and health care, to unify across the bars and across the borders, to make sure there's never another Oscar Grant, never another Trayvon Martin, never another Renisha McBride gunned down in the dark. We need a representative media that will shine the light. If you feel me, let me hear you say yes. Yes. We need a media that's going to turn audiences from passive consumers into active agents for change. Yes. We need journalism and the will and the resources to effectively watchdog power. We need an open and accessible internet that closes an undemocratic digital divide. We need the legal right to own and operate our own media, our own broadband, our own newspapers, our own television stations, so our children won't grow up in a world that hates them, a world that relegates them to poverty, to powerlessness, to invisibility. If you feel me, let me hear you say yes. Yes. Right here in Oakland, we know that the right and the power to communicate is a life and death issue. It's not just about technocrats in Washington, D.C. This is about us, our right to live. our right to have good jobs. If we can't connect, we can't speak for ourselves, we can't amplify our issues, and we hope tonight that our regulatory agencies and our leaders are up to the task of partnering with us to save our democracy and our lives. Because making changes like this are big. It's not going to be enough for one man in one commission to take charge and take action. It's going to require a partnership. It's going to require all of us in this room to stand together. We're not looking for somebody else. We're looking for our own action. We're looking for our own agency. This town hall represents Mr. Wheeler's first official visit outside of the D.C. Beltway. Well, I say first because I just like to claim that, but I don't know if that's true. I'll just say that anyway. It's one of the first, though. Tonight, we have a rare and special opportunity to share our stories with him. This is just the beginning, though. It's the beginning of a dialogue and that won't end until our families and our communities have the media system they need to thrive. I'll close this way. In D.C., we often see business as usual. People in power negotiating with other people in power, leaving us out. This town hall is not about them. It's about us. East Bay, are you in the house tonight? Yeah. At the Center for Media Justice, we know media policies only change when the people most impacted by those policies are able to speak directly to those in power. And in fact, they really only change when the people impacted become the people in power. Tonight, I hope your voice fills the streets. I hope it echoes beyond these walls. I hope it shakes in the halls of power till they feel you when they sleep. Somebody said once to me, there are no voiceless people, only people that ain't been heard yet. And tonight, I hope you get heard. Let's make it happen. Come on. Yeah. Now, this right here is my comrade, my colleague, Jessica Gonzalez, and she's going to take it away with the next piece, National Hispanic Media Coalition. I love you, girl.
Love you too.
Yes.
Gracias, Malkia. Thank you. Y buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Jessica Gonzalez, and I'm not going to say this entire thing in Spanish. Don't worry. I represent the National Hispanic Media Coalition. I'm here this evening as an advocate, a Latina, a woman, a mother, to give voice to the voiceless. That's what the Voices for Internet Freedom Coalition is really all about. Ensuring the rights of all people to hear and be heard on the internet. Ensuring affordable access to open broadband internet connections. This morning I logged on to my favorite blog, desumama.com. This Cuban-American blogger writes love letters to her children. She isn't a policy wonk or a journalist or a racial justice activist, but she is changing American culture one reader at a time by sharing her journey as the daughter of immigrants, the wife of a Black man, and the mother of biracial, bi-ethnic children. And she's earning a living at this. Today, thanks to the FCC's network neutrality decision in 2010, we can access De Su Mama on our fixed internet connections just as easily as we can access Fox News or CNN. This means that we can learn about what it means to be an American from a diversity of sources online, not just entrenched media outlets that have largely ignored the positive contributions of people of color in this country. Affordable, universal, and open broadband internet access is integral to achieving equality in the United States. This is particularly important for people of color who have faced not only media misrepresentation and discrimination from economic opportunity, but also lag behind in broadband adoption. NHMC and Voices thank you, Chairman Wheeler, for being here this evening. And we call on you to do everything in your power to ensure that all Americans, and especially our children, have first-class access to all of the opportunities that broadband affords. With that, I'll get off my soapbox and actually do what I was asked to do here this evening, which is to introduce an extraordinarily talented, intelligent, and courageous public servant and one of California's own Public Utilities Commission members. This person has an impressive resume with stints in academia, the media industry, at the FCC, and in private practice. She has a JD from Stanford Law, a Master in Letters from Oxford, where she was the first Latina Rhodes Scholar in history, and a BA in Latin American Studies from Yale. I could read off all of her accolades, but we'd be here all evening. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming this trailblazer, Commissioner Kathy Sandoval.
Gracias. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I apologize. I have that cold that's going around, so apologize. My voice is weak, but my heart is strong and strengthened by that amazing poet laureate and all of your amazing work that you're doing here for the community. So we're greatly honored to have you here in California. Welcome to California, Chairman Wheeler, and my longtime friend, Gigi Sohn. We welcome you on behalf of the community, on behalf of the people of the state, the Governor of California, Jerry Brown. And I come to you here not just as a commissioner with the California Public Utilities Commission, but as somebody who's also standing for the promise of California. I'm a little girl from East LA whose family started out in a trailer park, and then we moved up to the barrio where we got to live in an apartment. And now I've had the opportunity, thanks to Governor Brown, to serve on the California Public Utilities Commission. I am the first Latino or Latina ever in the 100-year history of the CPUC to serve on this commission. And I have, thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our work and some of the collaboration that I hope that we can do together, Chairman Wheeler, and describe my remarks by thinking about, when I was driving up here, I was thinking about how do I describe my remarks. I wanted to use the acronym CALI. In Spanish, it would be Califas, but to keep it short, we'll talk about Cali. So a couple of words to orient us as we think about California. You know, many people think about California. This is also the home of the Silicon Valley. It's the home of Disneyland. This is where the iPad was born. But this is also the birthplace of the Korean taco, which I mention because it's an example of the same fusion of cultures and energies and ideas that is the hallmark of California. Today we had the opportunity to have an early dinner at a French-Vietnamese restaurant here in Oakland. This is a great state, our golden state of 38 million people. We have 3 of the top 10 largest cities in America here in California: Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Jose, and of course the Great Bay Area, including Oakland. But we also have rural areas the size of the state of Kentucky, with a population the size of the state of Maine. So I know that there are some people here with rural organizations, because we have to make sure that our brothers and sisters in rural areas are also included, also able to access the internet, especially as we do move to things like interactive computer testing for our kids. I want to make sure that the kids of California are not being tested on how fast their internet connection is, but how good their brains are. And unfortunately, that is what's going to happen if we don't do something about it. Today, already what we're seeing is in places like in Red Bluff in Butte County, they're busing kids for 2 hours to take the practice tests because they don't have the broadband connections available in outer Red Bluff in the rural areas. Even in the urban areas, my old high school has almost 4,000 kids. There is just no way that you can get in places in Oakland, in South Los Angeles, 4,000, 6,000 kids on the internet at the same time, and not end up in a situation where the kids in Beverly Hills have an advantage and the kids in Oakland are at a disadvantage, and that is unfair. And I want to work with all of you to be partners in making sure that all of our kids have equal opportunity. And so communications is going to be even more critical as we go into the future. And I wanted to talk to you about one of the programs that the California Public Utilities Commission is working on that really we are at the precipice of a game changer, which is our Lifeline program. So California has its own state-funded Lifeline program that we created in 1987. And actually, our program pays more for Lifeline than the federal government program. So the federal government has also a very generous Lifeline program. And both of our programs, both the federal and the state universal service programs, are intended to bring all of the people in the United States robust communications. And our state program is intended to improve the economic health and participation, the safety of all of our people. And so I am the assigned commissioner for our Lifeline proceeding. And we are on the precipice of making this game changer, but we need your help to do so. It is on the commission's agenda for next Thursday, and I need your help to make sure that we're going to be able to vote and that we can bring these services to people. And what we have proposed is that while the federal Lifeline program has been very helpful, and one of the things that the federal government has done is extended Lifeline to wireless, the federal program doesn't require carriers to have any minimum number of minutes. So what's happening is that for the federal Lifeline providers, many of them provide only 250 minutes of call time a month. And what's happening in our 8 public participation hearings that we ran from Eureka to down south in San Diego, we heard people were running out of minutes being on hold with social services. They were running out of minutes talking to disability services. The whole idea of running out of minutes while you're talking to a suicide hotline is just unthinkable. But in the wireless world, they count everything as minutes, whereas on the landline world, 800 numbers are free. They're counted as minutes. So what we have proposed is for California to put its own money to incentivize more minutes, more money for more minutes. So if carriers offer between 501 to 999 minutes, we will put down our own state money of $5.75 in addition to the federal fund, which in and of itself would be the most generous wireless Lifeline program in the nation. Now, most people make over 700 minutes of calls a month. That is 30 minutes a day. So for plans that offer 1,000 minutes or more, we will pay the equivalent of what we pay Wireline, which is $12.65 a month. So put together with the federal money, that will be $22.40. This, ladies and gentlemen, will be the game changer that will make smartphones affordable for the people of Oakland, affordable for the people of East LA, affordable for the people of San Jose, and be able to help people be able to get this access that can create a game changer. And the last couple of things, so I need your help to make that happen so the kids can do their homework. And we preserve landlines and the option for people to choose landlines because we preserve the option for basic service. And we know that service inside the home is very important, and that's one of the things that we preserve in California through our carrier of last resort obligations. So the last 2 points, which are also critical. Mr. Chairman, we have also proposed to use California's money to create a program that doesn't require a social security number in order to qualify for Lifeline. Now, the FCC a couple of years ago adopted a rule that requires Lifeline applicants to provide the last 4 numbers of the Social Security number, which is both a very weak way to be able to check identity and prevent fraud. And California has a very robust fraud prevention program. In fact, the FCC has been coordinating with us to try to copy the computerized database, the third-party administrator that we're using. But it has also had the side effect of disenfranchising millions of hardworking Californians who are paying into the fund, who are eligible for Lifeline, but who are disenfranchised by the requirement for a Social Security number. So I have proposed, and our state is willing to put its own money on the table to enfranchise these people. So we are going to pay for our own fund and help to create, and I need your help to help us create a program that will allow those without a Social Security number to participate in the economy, to be able to make that 911 call through Lifeline. And Mr. Chairman, we're going to be asking the FCC for a waiver to ask the federal government to allow us to waive the Social Security requirement for the federal piece in light of our very strong programs that ensure the integrity of the fund. So the last thing I would say, and this gets to the I part in Cali, which is we are here about inclusion. This is the home of innovation, of investment, but when I think of California more than anything else, this is about inclusion. This is a state where there is no racial majority. There is a plurality here. There is a vast patchwork of languages, of communities that are all connected together. And this is the state that is the home. I know that you are big on networks, and I loved your writing on net effects, the past, present, and future, the impact of our networks. Great cartoons and pictures, by the way. And one of the things that you mentioned was the dramatic change of the railroad. California is the home of the terminus of the Transcontinental Railroad. The spike was driven in our state capital in Sacramento. And that railroad still today connects Oakland and many other communities to the rest of the nation. But it is now, as you know, the modern communications networks that are going to connect the Oaklands, the East LAs, the East San Jose's, the Eurekas to the world, and help all of us to be able to flourish, innovate, include, and interconnect, and to continue to be the great and golden state that helps make this country great. So thank you very much, and welcome to California, and thank you for having me at this town hall.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandoval. So you guys with me? Oakland. Let's keep the energy up. And another shout out to the folks in the overflow room. If you're on Twitter, they actually have their own hashtag now. Hashtag overflow room, if you want to see what's going on over there. All right, so now we're going to move into the community panel portion of the evening. So I'm going to invite the panelists to join me here on stage and have a seat. And while everyone gets settled, I just want to bring everyone's attention to a fact sheet that is on your chairs. Everyone received them tonight, and it gives some context about media and communications in Oakland and the Bay Area. And at the heart of all of the data that you see there is the story of inequality. A story that Oakland knows all too well, and a story with national implications that need to be fully understood by policymakers. Our panelists are going to help us put that story into perspective for us. This is the story of state deregulation that has caused the cost of basic phone service to triple at a time when those who rely on it most can least afford it. And this is an important lesson that the FCC should heed as they consider AT&T and Verizon's plan to end all state and federal oversight over our nation's communications networks. This is the story of a region that, much like the rest of the country, has tremendous areas of prosperity, and also areas like Oakland, where people still struggle to afford quality broadband access. This is a story of a region where people of color make up 2/3 of the population and own only 5% of the region's full-power television stations. Nationally, people of color make up 1/3 of our population and own just 3% of our nation's full-power television stations. And I'm going to take a minute on this point because media ownership diversity is important. The fact is that media consolidation has made it nearly impossible for people of color to own broadcast stations because it raises the barriers to entry. Instead of protecting these critical voices, the FCC under prior leadership has put forward proposals that allow for greater media consolidation time and time again. Public interest, media justice, and civil rights organizations have challenged those proposals time and again. And we have won in court time and again. And we've challenged those because of the harms to current and potential owners of color, and also the harms to the public at large from media consolidation. The FCC has also turned a blind eye to a sneakier form of media consolidation, a practice that allows massive media conglomerates to use shell companies to grow even larger. These shell companies are a fiction that the Securities and Exchange Commission does not recognize. These are defined as anti-competitive by the Department of Justice, and they undermine diversity in local news and drive up the price of cable television service for consumers. Shell companies are being used to evade the FCC's media ownership rules in nearly half of our country's media markets. It's a practice that has to end. And the final point I'll make here, it's one that Malkia mentioned. When Free Press started tracking ownership statistics back in 2006, there were 18 full-power, Black-owned and operated television stations in the country. And according to our analysis of current FCC data, as of last month, that number now stands at 0. So in 2006, we had a crisis. But the situation today is tragic. It is a tragic example of the failures of our media policies. Now, Chairman Wheeler, we know that you did not cause these problems, but we know that you can fix them, and we're willing to work with you to do so. And we hope that you move quickly to do it because our communities cannot afford to wait any longer. So with that, we're going to hear from our first panelist, Mr. Rashad Robinson. Rashad is the Executive Director of Color of Change and a partner in Voices for Internet Freedom. Rashad.
It's fantastic to see such a wonderful turnout. You know, Color of Change is the nation's largest online civil rights organization. With more than 900,000 members, Black folks and their allies of every race, we work to make government and corporations more accountable, and in the process, win victories for all of us. With our national membership and tiny staff, our ability to amplify our members' voices, ensure that our communities are heard, depends on the existence of free and open internet. Across a wide range of policies, we see every single day that when America gets the cold, Black people get the flu. The open web is critical to our community's ability to access and share information and effectively organize for racial and social justice. Color of Change has been at the forefront of efforts to protect our ability to communicate freely online since we joined the fight to enshrine rigorous FCC net neutrality rules in 2010. Real net neutrality ensures that internet service and content providers can't collude to prioritize any website, services, or apps above others, either through blocking or slowing down access to competition or by charging customers more for it. Without net neutrality, AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, and other corporations would gain unprecedented control over our ability to what we see and do online. So take for a second, imagine Comcast, who we already pay a hefty bill every month due to lack of competition in the cable industry. Imagine for them to be able to penalize you for accessing news sources not owned by their NBC subsidiary. Imagine it, and it's possible, because thanks to a Bush-era ruling regulating cable and telecom companies differently, which former FCC Chair Julius Genachowski disappointingly failed to reverse, that's exactly what's happening with mobile web now. You know, Chairman Genachowski's FCC oversaw creating a loophole for wireless providers that lets AT&T and Verizon discriminate however they please when you're accessing the internet through their smartphones. There's no defensible technology or policy rationale for regulating the internet different depending on a device you access or use it on. And it's a giveaway to telecom industries. This giveaway disproportionately harms Black folks whose smartphone adoption outpaces that of the general public. As more and more of us are relying primarily and solely on our phones to access the web, the FCC's rules are creating a second-class internet for mobile users. Just this week, AT&T Wireless announced it will start charging mobile web companies for priority access to subscribers, waiving data cap restrictions for what it calls sponsored content. AT&T already is charging subscribers over $100 a month for plans with completely made-up, indefensible data caps, and now it's taking advantage of that bad action to double dip, inventing a new charge it can access for providing the same service. Smaller companies, not to mention nonprofit organizations, educational and news sites that can't pay AT&T's fee to reach internet users will be severely disadvantaged. Current net neutrality rules restrain AT&T from engaging in the kind of discrimination when it comes to DSL and fiber companies. But unless FCC takes decisive action this year, even those protections could go away. Verizon has sued the FCC, arguing that the agency has no authority to regulate ISPs whatsoever, a decision that's expected early as this month. Fortunately, the FCC has the power to protect the public from this predatory behavior if it's only able to take this action. In these moments, our communities rely on commissions like the FCC to stand up and protect us from those that will do harm. Over the course of the history of civil rights movements in this country and fights for marginalized communities, we have looked to independent agencies to defend our fundamental rights, and we're coming once again. You know, there's something about our participation in this democracy. We want to be heard. We want to be counted. We want to be visible. And we want to do that equally among all people, privileged or vulnerable, majority or minority, in favor or out of favor with those in power. Our ability to do that today is dependent on our ability to access the communication tools of our time. You know, I want to thank you for joining us here in Oakland tonight and engaging face-to-face with real people. And we hope over the course of the next 5 years at the helm of FCC, you will serve as a champion for the people. Color of Change is here tonight, and our allies are here tonight to let you know that if you're willing to do that, you can count on us to have your back and work with you as we move forward in the spirit of justice and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashad. And next we are going to move to Christina Mansfield, the Co-Executive Director of Civic Community Initiatives for Visiting Immigrants in Confinement, to discuss prison phone rates. And I'll just alert you all to the signs there to help us manage time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here among all of you. My name is Christina Mansfield. I'm the co-founder and co-executive director of Community Initiatives for Visiting Immigrants in Confinement, Civic. And we're a national network of over 30 community visitation programs supporting immigrants who are detained and their families. And we're working to end the immigration detention system through education and advocacy. I'd like to begin by expressing how grateful we are for the FCC's recent order to reduce interstate long-distance prison phone rates and commission payments paid to contracting facilities that drive up the cost of long-distance calls. This is critical for immigrants who are detained because the majority are routinely transferred across the country very far from their families, as are many state prisoners. Despite the FCC's regulations that cap the cost of long-distance phone calls, communities remain unprotected from price gouging on the cost of local telephone calls in local California jails, where the price of a local call will soon far exceed the price of a long-distance call. Similarly, state legislation, SB 81, passed back in 2007, bans the practice of kickback commission payments between prison phone companies and state prisons, which greatly reduce the cost of calls. However, this legislation also leaves California county jails and private facilities unprotected. California county jails and private detention facilities remain exempt from regulation of any kind and continue to generate revenue from kickback commission payments that drive up the cost of calls for families and loved ones of prisoners. Another consideration is that in 2011, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered California to reduce prison overcrowding, citing constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment. The California legislature responded by passing AB 109, which realigns certain state prisoners to county jails. As a result, realigned prisoners who were formerly protected by SB 81 in state prisons are again subject to expensive phone call rates in county jails. Civic is concerned that in anticipation of the FCC's ruling to regulate interstate phone rates, prison phone companies and contracting counties have attempted to protect themselves from potential profit losses by charging higher commission rates at the local unregulated level. California Public Record Act requests filed by Civic show that 2 counties in California that renegotiated their contracts with Global Tel-Link increased their commission rates by 11%. Here in the state of California, outrageous phone rates adversely affect immigrants in detention, county inmates, realigned state prisoners, incarcerated youth, inmates with disabilities, and the families and communities that support all prisoners. We know that poor people of color are the targets of our criminal legal system and our immigration enforcement system, and their families bear the additional burden of being targeted by these profit-driven industries. We urge the FCC to continue its work to protect our communities from these indefensible practices. And I'd just like to add that I have the case studies of 3 counties in California. If anyone's interested in learning more, please see me. I have plenty of copies. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Next up, we have Stephanie Chin, Energy and Telecommunications Policy Director for the Greenlighting Institute, to discuss the IP transition. Stephanie.
Thanks, Chance. Hello, Oakland. Chairman Wheeler, Commissioner Sandoval, thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Stephanie Chen, and I represent the Greenlighting Institute. We are a multi-ethnic research and advocacy organization dedicated to economic empowerment in communities of color. Simply put, we believe that everyone should have a fair shot at achieving the American dream, no matter where you come from or what you look like. Tonight, as Chance mentioned, I'll be speaking about the telephone transition. Shameless plug, Greenlighting has published a report on the transition and its potential impacts on consumers, particularly the consumers of color that we represent. It's always available at greenlighting.org, and we have a few copies here tonight. What we've found is that because of the racial wealth gap, and we do have a racial wealth gap in this country, communities of color are more likely to depend on the universal service guarantees and consumer protections that we've come to know over decades on the analog phone network. All of us, for generations now, have relied on the guarantee that we can get quality, affordable phone service no matter where we live. Not only does this guarantee offer families the connection they need, but it also guarantees that just about everyone in this country is a paying customer. That sounds like a win-win situation to me, and one that will benefit the IP network just as it did for copper. Millions of people, including the people who make telecommunications policy, have multiple phones: mobile, home, office. This can make it easy to forget what it's like to have only one phone and to rely on that one phone for all of your communications and information needs. Having that phone means the difference between a quick call and a long bus ride just to ask your doctor a question. Service quality standards mean the difference between being able to hear your mom when she calls you on your birthday and just hearing static. Interconnection rules mean the difference between a small business needing a separate phone line for each carrier and one that just handles all carrier calls. Public safety policies mean the difference between getting the help you need in an emergency and going it alone. The IP transition promises great benefits through the evolution of technology, but technological evolution should not weaken what you have described as the network compact, on which our families and our economy have come to depend. Just as it did for the analog network, a robust set of policies and principles designed to make sure that we are all connected will benefit consumers and carriers alike. We look forward to the promise the transition holds, and we look to you to make that promise a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And finally, we have our last panelist, Mark Toney, the executive director of TURN, the Utility Reform Network.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chairman Wheeler, for attending this community town hall. TURN has spent the last 5 years organizing hundreds of Black, Latino, and Asian grassroots leaders throughout California to develop a program design for a lifeline to the future that meets their needs and deliver their visions and recommendations to at public hearings. Lifeline to the Future is based on the understanding that all of society benefits when everybody is connected to healthcare, to education, to employment, to social services, to emergency services, to business, and to our families both locally and globally. Lifeline to the Future provides our communities with first-class service at a discount and not inferior service designed for poor people. Lifeline must be required in order to be a first-class service to provide fast speeds, adequate minutes, public safety, consumer protection, and universal service at affordable prices, no matter the technology used, no matter if we're talking about broadband, wireless, or landline, which we absolutely believe people need to continue to have the right to, and that the FCC needs to protect people from forced migration, from forcibly being switched from landline to VoIP if they want to keep their landline. The FCC has the opportunity to use Lifeline policy to make society more fair and equitable. We see Lifeline as a tool for our communities to engage in active two-way communications where users create content, exchange ideas, and build community, rather than simply as a tool for passive consumption of one-way transmission of information where consumers sit, watch, and pay the bills. We believe in regulation in the public interest where the needs of communities count every bit as much as the desires of broadband providers, where broadband is recognized by the FCC as an essential communication service so that broadband customer surcharges can fund a national broadband lifeline program. And we need a cutting-edge program that brings Lifeline to all residents of our communities, regardless of citizenship status. We never ask people for their Social Security number when we are charging the universal service fee. It is not right to ask them for a Social Security number when they need the subsidy. We need Lifeline to be inclusive, for it to be universal. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists. And next up, I'm going to bring Stephen Renderos to the stage. He is the national organizer for the Center for Media Justice, and he is going to lead our community comment period. Stephen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. How y'all doing, Oakland? We got to get the energy up, y'all. So I'm excited, and I'm actually excited for a couple reasons. The first reason being that I'm actually from California. I grew up in Los Angeles, but don't hold that against me. I got a lot of love for the Bay. I work at the Center for Media Justice, which, as you know, is based here in Oakland, California. The title of tonight's event is Oakland Voices. And as I look out into the room here tonight, it's overflowing. We even got an overflowed room, hashtag, what is it, overflow room, hashtag overflow room. We got many people watching us online right now, friends from here in the Bay Area, friends from all over the country. This is about Oakland. And so the section, I'm really excited to move us into this section because this is where we get to hear more and more from some of the voices of people in these communities, of what's happening here in this community when it comes to our media and telecommunications system. And to the Oakland Voices theme, there were many ways that we wanted to set up for you all to have a voice in this event. The first is online. Join the digital dialogue that's happening right now. Hashtag Oakland Voices, hashtag FCC, hashtag Welcome Wheeler, hashtag Overflow Room. Send your comments over there. Let's have a dialogue about what's happening in this community. The second is, in every chair, we put a little testimony sheet, because as my colleague Chance said at the beginning, we're not going to be able to hear from everybody. And I think it's a good problem to have when many people want to speak out. But we provided those sheets because we want to get your testimonies. We have a box in the back where we'll be collecting them. And we, as in Free Press, Center for Media Justice, will hand-deliver those to DC. But we also created a space for people to speak here tonight. And so I want to invite some of those folks that have signed up to speak to line up on the microphone. If my friend Chance can go ahead and line them up. My homeboy, yes, you are. These are folks that work with, are part of, live in impacted communities. And like Malkia said earlier today, it's really powerful to bring impacted communities to speak to power. And that is really the purpose of this event tonight, and we're going to get to hear from some 20 powerful speakers, 20 powerful leaders in this community about some of the issues that are mattering the most here to the Bay. So with that, I want to open it up. We have 90 seconds per each speaker, so I'll ask our speakers to be as diligent as we can with time so that as many people can be heard tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. Chairman Wheeler, colleagues, honored guests, my name is Bob Butler. I am the president of the National Association of Black Journalists, founded in 1975 with various goals that included promoting diversity in newsroom staff and management. In 2007, we wanted to talk with media company owners about how NABJ could help their newsrooms reflect the diversity of the communities they served. Before we could do that, though, we had to get hard data on the current diversity numbers. The stations and the companies did not want to give us the information. So we began doing our own surveys, our own census of television newsroom management in the United States at television stations and the news networks. Our most recent report looks at 295 stations owned by 19 different companies. 35% of the managers are women, which is not bad. Only 12% are people of color. It's important to note that the nation's diversity is 35%. More than half of these stations in this report had no diversity in management at all in places like New York, LA, San Francisco. There are two problems. One is consolidation that we've talked about earlier tonight, drastically reducing the number of radio and TV station owners, only made more challenging with the number of shared services agreements where a station owned by one company provides news for a competing station in the same market. Second, stations are required to report their diversity, but it's not clear if anybody at the FCC looks at these figures. NABJ believes some companies have no incentive to reflect the communities they serve because there are no real sanctions for failing to do so. We encourage the FCC to enforce its 257 rules and to expand them to include not just ownership, but management too. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is C.W. Johnson. I'm a tenant organizer, volunteer tenant organizer who signs up disabled and low-income people in my community for Lifeline. I am also low-income and disabled and use Lifeline myself. I and others are grateful for Lifeline services. However, there is still a lot of work to do. The Lifeline and low-income phone websites are very confusing and very hard to understand and not easily accessible. The landlines through AT&T or MCI need to offer low-income internet services that could be included in a low-cost bundle, and long distance should also be included automatically instead of an expense. This could be through tax exemptions or government subsidies to telephone companies that are willing to do this. Cell phones should have internet access to at least 2 gigabytes to 5 gigabyte data plan. We're not asking for the latest $600 phone, but the basic standard internet cell phone. Definitely would like to see you support any phone company that would step up and make this available for us through government subsidies, tax exemptions, or whatever the program may be. We are moving into 2014. Medical records, jobs, and basic communication are being placed on the internet. The current low-income phone services are leaving a whole group of our community behind. When you receive low-income housing, whether it be a Section 8 public housing or housing for veterans, you don't get just a bathroom or just a kitchen or just a living room. You get a whole house. So why can't we get a full life service program? Thank you and good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner Wheeler. We sincerely thank you for making it a priority to come to a town hall meeting in California, outside of the Beltway, to hear directly from California consumers. My name is Ana Montes, and I'm the organizing director at TURN, the Utility Reform Network. I have worked on telecom issues for over 16 years. I've worked on lifeline issues, broadband access issues, and other issues impacting limited English serving communities, rural communities, and other communities. I currently manage a Policy Voice project where we work with communities from throughout California. I also handle complaints from consumers on a day-to-day basis, and I can tell you I hear everything from all kinds of people. In particular, I would like to share with you that these relationships inform our work at Term. And one of the things that I've heard over and over from people is that when it comes to services, it costs more to be poor. In particular, I would like to share with you the concerns expressed by many individuals in California regarding the Lifeline program requirement of a Social Security number, or the last 4 digits. The last 4 digits of a Social Security number, in addition to a person's name, address, phone number, and date of birth, represents an exclusionary barrier for many qualified paying customers, not only from the immigrant community, but for persons who are concerned about privacy and identity theft. The Universal Service Program is designed to help people. In order to ensure that California Lifeline is truly universal, preserves access to telecommunications services for all vulnerable California, other forms of valid government-issued identification should be accepted, like tax IDs, government-issue ID cards, driver's license, or other forms. We ask you to reconsider the requirement of the last 4 digits of a Social Security number for a Lifeline program. After all, people don't get asked for a Social Security number when they subscribe to telephone service.
Good evening, and thank you for listening. My name is Priya Sahani, and I'm a community organizer with Central City SRO Collaborative, which is the organizing division of Tenderloin Housing Clinic. We work on a lot of low-income issues within our community, and I oversee the Lifeline program, which helps folks in the Tenderloin and South of Market area sign up for telephone service and also address many issues with the service as well. In the 1 year I have been doing this work, I have taken into note the high turnover rate of Lifeline customers. There is affordable service, we are told, but where are the affordable service customers? Where are the services? Priya, why is it taking so long for me to get a phone? I have cancer. I need one. Can I get it faster? These are the kinds of questions I have to ask. I wish, Rudy, I tell him. The reason for this high turnover rate can be assigned to the procedural difficulties in the Lifeline process. A client wants a landline and a landline Lifeline phone, and he's asked to pay $50 to sign up for it. With no money to spend, he gives up and asks for a cell phone instead. The cell phone option, if one gets through the sign-up process, that is, takes 54 days to arrive, with several mid-check-ins with customer service to track the phone. Finally, the client may get a phone, which offers 8 minutes per day, and all too often to have their telephone service rejected and disconnected because they didn't fill out yet another Lifeline application. So Chairman Wheeler, we are told there's affordable telephone service being offered, but we ask you on behalf of the low-income community, where is the affordability? Where is the service, the quality? We ask you, where is the promise of simple and accessible program any member of the low-income community can access?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Gong. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Asian American Media. We produce and present documentary films on public television that convey the richness and diversity of Asian American experiences. Chairman Wheeler, in preparation for this testimony, I found, online of course, a link to your recent remarks at The Ohio State University. I enjoyed your history lesson on the 4 great network revolutions, the printing press, the railroad, the telegraph, and now connectivity. You pointed out that these revolutions transformed and unleashed ancillary and beneficial economic activity. Although in these remarks you did not make the point, I am sure you would agree that the benefits of these networks were not equally shared by all, even those who played a key role in enabling their creation. Thus, for example, the Chinese workers who conquered the Sierra Nevada for the Central Pacific Railroad were in some respects rewarded by the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act. My point is to underscore the vital importance of your regulatory responsibilities to look after the interests of all citizens in this new age of interconnectivity, and especially for those who lack the access and leverage of wealth and privilege. So today, in the context of interconnectivity, I say broadband is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Affordable broadband is a building block for healthy communities, a competitive workforce, and an engaged and informed democracy. I urge your support of policies that expand access to broadband for all Americans, especially those who are marginalized by geography, economics, language, and ethnicity. Thank you.
AL 1963 represents my son in the California State Prison System. In 2010, my son was arrested at 17 years old. He was tried as an adult, and in 2012, he was sentenced to 20 years and 4 months. Reality set in that our son was going to have to grow up in prison. We were determined to keep in contact with him as much as possible. After his sentence, he was sent to Kern County State Prison, and we had no contact with him for over 5 months because that prison didn't have a phone. My son was moved to another state prison 14 hours away from our home. Our phone conversations mean everything to us. To date, we've paid $3,900 towards Global Tel Link surcharges and long-distance charges in order to remain in contact with our son. He has 16 more years left to go, which will average out to $20,800 in phone bill charges we are expected to pay in order to remain in contact with him. I'm a concerned parent. Thank you for your time and for the work that was done last year. However, please don't stop there. Thank you.
What's your name?
Karen Gonzalez.
Karen Gonzalez. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Karen. My name is Amy Sunny. Greetings, Chairman Wheeler. I'm here tonight as a public librarian, and I'm proud to say that Oakland Public Library, like most libraries, is a beloved hub for digital learning, e-government, media participation, and creation. I'm also here because despite great strides, more than 60% of California libraries lack the bandwidth to meet public demand every day, including Oakland, where we're light years away from meeting the minimum goal of 100 megabits per second, or 1 gigabit per second, as outlined in ConnectEd. Libraries and schools are the heartbeat of truly connected communities, but technologically, too many rely on a virtual defibrillator to reboot each day. Just today, Governor Brown released his budget proposing millions for high-speed internet, and it's a step in the right direction, but we need your support. If I had more time, I'd tell you in-depth stories about the day I arrived to find 50 people waiting for computers. Section 8 applications had opened entirely online. Or the day I helped a mother, recently laid off, look for trucking jobs. With 20 years of experience, every job listing still proposed a new technological challenge for her. Or I'd talk about the students who wait patiently for computers every day after school, only to have the connection lag. How many hours have we all spent watching the page load? We all know what happens at rush hour when you cram hundreds of drivers onto a single-lane highway. You get a traffic jam. The FCC can help us widen the lanes. As chair, you can help libraries remain beacons of 21st century learning by raising the E-rate funding cap, streamlining the process while ensuring funds go where they're most needed, reducing barriers to deployment, and protecting an open internet through net neutrality. So youth like Obasi Davis, who we saw earlier, can remain media creators and not just consumers. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh Hartz. I'm director of StopSmartMeters.org. Thank you to the organizers for putting this event together where we can share the truths, share our truths. And I think it's especially important to share our truths when they're inconvenient or unpleasant. And the truth is that wireless is hurting us. And like most toxins, it bears a special burden on those who are disenfranchised, who are poor, and who are marginalized. Yes, we want broadband, we want connectivity, but not all broadband is created equal. We need wired internet available to all who want it. Now, in 2011, the World Health Organization classified all wireless radiation, that's cell phones, Wi-Fi, cell towers, smart meters, as a Class 2B possible cancer-causing agent. The National Institutes of Health found changes in our brain glucose metabolism from holding the cell phone to our head for an hour. These are impacts that our communities are suffering terribly. People are getting brain tumors from their cell phones. The man to my right worked as the head of the wireless industry for 12 years. His scientists told him that people were getting brain tumors, and he covered it up. And this is who is leading this government. He bought his position for $1 million. The CPUC, represented here by Catherine Sandoval, has done nothing to allow people to opt out of smart meters on their very homes, even if they're getting ill. We need to look to our own communities for solutions and refuse to go along. And we need landlines to be kept and enhanced and to be defended. And we need corded, safe, wired access, not wireless.
Good evening, Chairman Wheeler. My name is Jack Walsh. I'm the Executive Director of the National Alliance for Media Arts and Culture, also known as NAMAC. We're the national service organization for the media arts, which describes works created in film, video, audio, and digital formats. Our members are nonprofit organizations that are rooted in their communities and are providing independent perspectives through the production and distribution of original media. We believe that net neutrality is essential to ensure that audiences have access to authentic stories about their communities and to topics that are often overlooked or absent from commercial media. In surveys NAMAC conducted with over 500 community-based media organizations in 2010 and again in 2013, we learned that they present over 285 uniquely creative programs in those communities. These programs get further screening and viewing by 100 million viewers annually through the internet. That's why the internet has become a more important tool to make sure that this independent media is out and available. In the 21st century, the free flow of diverse ideas, creative work, and entrepreneurial activity is essential to both our democracy and our economy. The FCC must enact policies for net neutrality so that the internet is affordable to all, open so that all users have unfettered access to content, and creators may distribute their work without artificial constraints, and fast so all Americans can experience the full potential of the internet. Thank you for your time.
I'm too tall for this. I'm Dimitri Belser. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Accessible Technology in Berkeley. And we work with people with disabilities around access to the internet. A lot of the other organizations here will talk about things that impact the disability community and why the disability community is one of the most disenfranchised communities in terms of broadband access. And that is affordability. People with disabilities are disproportionately low income. But another piece of this is accessibility, is making the internet actually accessible to people with disabilities. And that is particularly important in terms of making websites accessible. I know that the federal government has some requirements around website accessibility that are pretty much universally ignored. And I would like to ask the FCC to really take a leadership role in demonstrating web accessibility. I'd like the FCC to start with a very inaccessible website, which unfortunately is fcc.gov. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adele Casaperalta, and I represent the Rural Broadband Policy Group, a national group advocating for increased access to telecommunication services in rural areas. Telecommunications companies are not interested in serving rural communities because we have less people and span long distances. This results in rural people stuck with bad service or no service at all. However, when companies are required to follow consumer-focused regulations, services do reach rural areas. For example, carrier of last resort rules bring telephone to rural homes. Now that companies are changing the technology they use to deliver services, federal regulations are vital. We have seen AT&T and Verizon push bills that remove regulations at the state level, claiming that the federal rules will be enough to protect rural people. The reality is different. We've heard from people in California's Central Valley who are not allowed to maintain their landline and forced into a more expensive and less reliable bundled IP phone service. In New Mexico, they are left with spotty cell phone service, and in Texas, they saw their internet bill double from one month to the next. This is wrong. Any company providing service, independent of the technology they choose, must be required to provide quality, reliable, and affordable service. Mr. Chairman, technologies change, but the need to communicate and participate in our society does not. You have stated that universal service is a value that drives you at the FCC. Please put that value into action by ensuring that the regulations that brought phones to rural people transition to the internet and the technologies of the 21st century. We're delighted to work with you in making this a reality. Thank you.
Hello, Chairman Tom Wheeler, and welcome to our community. My name is Rosa Arrieta, and I'm the Communications Coordinator for Causa Justa Just Cause, a nonprofit organization that builds grassroots power and leadership among low-income Black and Latino Oakland and San Francisco residents. We create strong, equitable communities around housing, tenant, and immigrant rights. This fall, we applied to the FCC for a low-power FM radio station, and we're really excited to be considered for it. Here's why it's important to us and to Oakland. Many of our members get their news through radio. It's accessible, free, and portable. Not everyone has easy access to the internet, nor can they afford it. Some people are jobless, and they just can't afford it. We'll use our radio station to cover job, skill development, live broadcasts from Oakland City Council meetings, and public forums. We'll feature people affected by displacement and foreclosures, as well as what they're doing to stay in their homes. People rely on community-owned radio that provides them with information that's relevant to their communities, and in Oakland, radio is one of the best ways for us to reach people. Local, original content is needed in our community. We want to thank the FCC for its long-standing commitment to expand and strengthen community radio, and ask you, Chairman Wheeler, to continue your commitment. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Susan Walters, the Senior Vice President at the California Emerging Technology Fund. In the words of the late David Glover, an Oakland-based advocate for justice, equality, and economic opportunity, the digital divide is a symptom of all divides, and the cost of digital exclusion is real and rising. We urge the FCC to evolve from bridging the digital divide to achieving digital inclusion, implementing policies and strategies to achieve ubiquitous, high-speed broadband deployment, and accelerate affordable broadband adoption for all Americans. We have worked with more than 100 California community-based organizations and want to share 6 quick lessons. 1, it requires more resources to help those who have never been online. 2, it's simply not enough to build it and they will come. A quick example, Udacity and San Jose State, 2 folks in the Silicon Valley, halted an online education pilot with a charter school here in Oakland after 1 quarter because they realized too many students lacked adequate access to internet at home and at school, and they lacked the digital literacy skills needed to navigate the online coursework. We need an affordable broadband program that is issued from the FCC. We have seen extensive voluntary efforts to date, but they've had only modest success, namely Comcast Internet Essentials, which has only reached less than 10% of eligible participants in 2 years. The sustainable broadband adoption requires a comprehensive approach with housing, education, workforce preparation, and healthcare programs. There is no substitute for leadership. Your opportunity as the National Broadband Plan is it can be a catalyst for smashing silos in D.C. and to work with other agencies there and to serve as a model for policies and strategies engaging state and local officials. And finally, it's essential that you set goals and performance metrics and hold people accountable, and we are ready to help you achieve digital inclusion.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Favuzzi. I'm the Executive Director of the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. We're an advocacy organization focused on increasing access and equal opportunity for people with disabilities through California's 28 independent living centers. Through our assistive technology program, CFLC maintains a statewide device lending library that offers Californians the ability to borrow a device to meet either a temporary need or to try out technology before they buy it. We've seen a significant increase in the borrowing of devices that integrate internet access and disability access features. A good example of how an iPad and a wireless app can impact the life of a person with a disability is the story of Damari, a 21-year-old young woman living with cerebral palsy who had whose speech is often difficult for people to understand. when she borrowed a device that was an iPad that was equipped with Verbally, a comprehensive assistive speech solution. It made a huge impact on her ability to connect with her peers. And today she actually is a leader in her youth group. She's attending college, and she's volunteering in 2 organizations. So while Damari is well on her way to building a career path for herself, we can't really ignore the 60% of people with disabilities are underemployed or unemployed, and we can no longer expect to find a job, apply for college, choose a health plan, find an apartment, or map a public transit route without access to the internet. The FCC has the power to impact whether Americans with disabilities will gain equal access to opportunities to live, earn, learn, and thrive. And we respectively request that the FCC develop and prioritize policies that expand access to affordable high-speed internet and promote wireless applications that increase accessibility for people with disabilities. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Richard Abisla. I'm from the Mission Economic Development Agency in the Mission District of San Francisco, an area that's been in the news a lot lately. Meta leads the Mission Promise Neighborhood, a collaborative project bringing together city agencies, the San Francisco Unified School District, and over 26 community-based organizations that all work to raise student achievement and improve financial outcomes amongst low-income families in San Francisco. The Mission Promise Neighborhood is funded through the Federal Department of Education to address the high levels of poverty and low rates of student achievement. But how can a child do well in school if their family is facing eviction or foreclosure, their parents are unemployed or underemployed, or they don't have the necessary resources to complete their homework? Increasingly, internet access is an essential tool to addressing these problems. Meta works every day to train new users of technology, including parents of children attending schools in the Mission Promise neighborhood. A typical family in the Promise neighborhood with 2 parents and 2 children survives on $28,000 a year. How can this family afford market rate internet, which currently costs between $25 and $70 a month in our area? The same family is most in need of lower cost broadband so that these parents can get training to access higher paying employment, help their children do their homework, communicate with teachers, and manage their bank account and credit score. Many of these families are new to the country and speak limited English. Over the next 5 years, our goal is to ensure that 100% of these students will have access to computer and broadband internet in the home. With the support of the U.S. Department of Education and the California Emerging Technology Fund, we promote the benefits of broadband and technology for the whole family. The federal government needs to include technology use and broadband adoption in all federal poverty alleviation programs. The FCC must do what it can to lower the price of broadband in our communities.
Hi, I'm Sarah Steffens, Secretary Treasurer of the Newspaper Guild. Media companies like to suggest that consolidation somehow will improve their news coverage, but our Bay Area story tells the opposite. Consolidation doesn't bring more in-depth reporting, it just means fewer journalists. Take the Contra Costa Times, where I was a reporter for 9 years. In 2006, the Times and its sister papers were bought by Media News Group, which then merged them with the Oakland Tribune and its sister papers. Media News also bought the San Jose Mercury News to the south. Early on, editors at this new Bay Area news group said that of these 12 papers, all these 12 papers should send just 1 reporter to cover any given event. The chain then began round after round of layoffs to pay back the massive loans that fueled its buying binge. Since the merger, the number of Guild-eligible workers at this combined news group has dropped from 760 to 270. And it's not just a print problem. The Bay Area Journalist Census measured job loss throughout the region, print and broadcast. And they found that between 2000 and 2010, employment dropped nearly 50%. We have literally lost half our journalists, and we haven't hit bottom yet. All these layoffs gutted the freelance market, makes it very hard for independent journalists to make ends meet, and those who are still employed keep undergoing pay cuts, and they find themselves wondering how much longer they can work in a newsroom. The dedication of our local journalists far outpaces their pay, and we're lucky for that, but no journalist can do the work of 2, and we're all suffering for that. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Wheeler. I'm Stephen Jablonski, and on behalf of my colleagues in the Video Relay Service Industry, or VRS, welcome to Oakland. I work as a sign language interpreter for the deaf and hard of hearing people who want to place that call that hearing people take for granted. My employer, Purple Communications, is just one company that provides this service and is reimbursed by the FCC for these calls. We applaud the FCC for continuing to root out industry fraud and mismanagement. However, the burden of the resulting reimbursement rate cuts are borne by interpreters and the clients we serve through unsafe work speed-ups that affect the accuracy of interpretation. There is much the FCC can and must do to protect this taxpayer-funded service. We urge the FCC to use research budget funds to study the effects of work speeds on interpreter health and message accuracy, and make the VRS industry transparent so researchers can study the impact of the use of non-certified interpreters and the rate at which experienced ASL interpreters are leaving the VRS field. These are urgent requests to ensure the long-term integrity of this important service that deaf and hard of hearing people rely on to have equal access communication rights guaranteed under the ADA law. While the letter of the law requires equality, the spirit of the law cries out for justice, and that is what we are asking for tonight. Justice for video relay service interpreters and the clients we serve. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Commissioner Wheeler. I'm Tracy Rosenberg, Executive Director of Media Alliance, which is a Bay Area Democratic Communications advocate, and also the Bay Area Anchor Group for the Media Action Grassroots Network, or MAGNET. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us this evening. And I hope it's not the last time that we will see you in the Bay Area. So, okay. Technology, as we all know, is changing all of these contracts between users and regulators and service providers. So the question for me, and I think also for the FCC, is what parts of the old universal service model do we need to keep? And it's a big question. Somewhere in the middle of the last century, and we could argue about the beginning, the middle, or the end, we achieved a couple of things with the landline telephone. Pretty good affordability, pretty good reliability, and a fairly broad scope of inclusion. Most people could afford a telephone, most people had it, most people used it. So a communication is a communication no matter what. The purpose is the same, to connect and to exchange information. It doesn't matter what kind of wire it's traveling on, and the problem right now is I pick up a wireless telephone, and I was going to bring mine up as a prop and do something theatrical, but I forgot. Then I'm sort of stepping into a regulatory Wild West that's extremely different than if I pick up a little black phone from Radio Shack. So let's end the madness and bring together one kind of telephone and the other kind of telephone, one kind of computer and the other kind of computer, Title I and Title II into one unified regulatory scheme that stresses what's important here, which is affordability, reliability, and inclusion. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Wheeler. My name is Eduardo Gonzalez. I'm here today representing Get Connected San Joaquin Valley, a collaborative partnership of various San Joaquin Valley educational and nonprofit organizations and the California Emerging Technology Fund, working to expand broadband adoption and increase internet usage among the state's hardest to connect. The San Joaquin Valley, as you know it, is the Central Valley. The San Joaquin Valley Get Connected is designed to help the state achieve its goals to close the digital divide and connect Californians to the internet. As internet usage and technology becomes further integrated in our daily lives, it is critical that San Joaquin Valley residents are not left behind. The most recent Public Policy Institute of California survey found that 53% of Latinos households have broadband at home, and the San Joaquin Valley lags behind much of the state. All of our efforts to closing the digital divide are inclusive to those families facing financial difficulties, senior citizens, and people with disabilities. What we are finding out is that lack of broadband infrastructure and high-cost internet service hinder families from getting connected. And for those families that are limited infrastructure, the $9.95 month Comcast Internet Essential program has been challenging to subscribe to. Today, our greatest concern is that Internet Essentials program is scheduled to end in June 2014, leaving Manny Valley residents unable to take advantage of this opportunity to connect. Today, we work in partnership with local educational institutions to close the digital divide. This collaborative effort to increase broadband adoption via educational partnerships will help our region remain economically competitive. Thus, we encourage the FCC to consider their learning is 24/7, and for our students to be competitive, they need access to the internet at home, not just school. Chairman Wheeler, we invite you to visit the San Joaquin Valley and help connect our poorest communities. And thank you, Oakland, for not forgetting the Central Valley.
Chairman Wheeler and Commissioner Sandoval, thank you for being here. My name is Olga Talamante. I'm the Executive Director of the Chicana Latina Foundation. With support from the California Emerging Technology Fund, we have been engaged in grassroots, community-based outreach and education to connect low-income Latino families to the internet. The work to expand broadband at home takes our young Latina ambassadors from health fairs to union halls to church basements to farm fields. Too often we find Latino school children having to go without internet at home, requiring them to spend hours in the library or parking lot to get an internet connection so they can do their homework. The FCC approved the merger of Comcast and NBC with a promise from Comcast that it would provide low-cost internet service to families with students who could not otherwise afford it. I'm sorry to say the efforts by Comcast are falling very short. Its Internet Essentials programs has enrolled less than 10% of eligible California families, yet Comcast is scheduled to end the $10 a month offer in less than 6 months. The future of our state and arguably our country depends on having all of its residents fully equipped to enjoy and utilize the wonders and benefits of technology. The FCC can and should play its role to help us lift our communities who are down in the deep crevices of the digital divide. We urge the FCC to encourage Comcast and other providers to continue offering low-cost broadband to Americans in need. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chairman Wheeler. My name's Chris Whitteman. Thank you for sitting through this tonight. I work at the California Public Utilities Commission, but unlike Commissioner Sandoval, I'm here in my individual capacity tonight. And I want to formulate a question that many people have put on the table. And I want to start with your book, iNet, or your iBook on net effects, and the statement, whereas earlier networks enabled economic activities, our network revolution defines virtually all aspects of the current economy. I couldn't agree more. Many people may not realize that every time they use a credit card, every time they go to an ATM machine, they are using the wires of the largest telephone carriers in the country. I don't think your statement goes far enough, though. I would suggest that public communication network not only carries an increasing share of our economy, or pretty much all of it, but it also carries our nation's culture. It's our public square. It seems to me, and Rashad said this better, that this network should serve everyone similarly, that it should be a common carrier for all communications, and those with resources should not be able to buy a fast lane. So my question to you is, and certainly not to the detriment of those without resources. So my question to you is, do you subscribe to the notion that the nation's communications network should be a common carrier? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Wheeler. My name is Monica Schultz. I'm the chair of the American Library Association Telecom Subcommittee. I'm also the IT director for the libraries in the peninsula. I'm here representing the public libraries. As you know, libraries are the hub of the community. Not only do we close the digital divide, but we also assist schools with after-school programs and assist people with learning how to use the computer, and many people don't have access in their homes for computers. I have a story to tell you. I know a young man of 14 years old, and the only access he has is during library hours to the computer. When the libraries are closed, he's forced to do his homework using his mother's cell phone. I really ask for your support to make affordable broadband to libraries, as this is their future, and to support the young children of today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Rudman. I'm the director at Making Contact, radioproject.org. We're a national media outlet based in Oakland, and we've worked with many of the groups here, so I want to thank the groups as well as thanking you for coming. Really a work of love that you've all done, and we appreciate our partnership with the groups here. I've lived in Oakland most of my life, and I've been a community media maker for decades. So some people in this room might expect me to talk about low power FM or internet freedom, and those are important issues. But I want to share something that's a little closer home and personal to me, and it affects my ability to stay connected to my family and friends in prison. The exorbitant phone rates charged by companies that have monopolies hurts all of us inside and outside of prison. And my friend Marilyn would call me from prison at great effort. She'd have to wait forever in line just to get to the phone, and then when she did, it was at a high financial cost. So Marilyn, an intelligent, loving woman doing long sentence, her access to phone calls to family and friends was a lifeline, and pun intended. The numbing noise and inhumanity that Marilyn had to suffer in prison was made more tolerable by connecting to those of us on the outside. Our phone calls were as important to me as they were to her. Her support, her encouragement, her challenging. This was a relationship that was kept alive by visits and phone calls. So my call to you is to deeply address the prison phone rate injustice. There are new rate caps, I understand that, but that's just a start. We still have rates that are 5 times as much for people in prison as people outside. Maybe $3.50 for a 15-minute call doesn't seem like much to some of us in the room, but picture a mom who's locked up and can't afford to say goodnight to her child. So I just want to end by saying there are enough ways that the prison system rips us apart from our family and our friends. We don't need the phone companies' greed of super profits to make the situation worse. Let's lower the cap on prison phone rates even more and extend them to all facilities. Thank you.
The war on the poor is in full effect, from Frisco to Oakland to the Philippines and Iraq. But now the soldiers are social workers, police, and politricksters creating deadly legislations and contracts. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us. I'm a poverty scholar. I'm all the people you don't want to see, don't want to be, and never look at me, because if you do, you'll arrest me. I'm a houseless mama on the street outside. I represent Poor News Network and the Poor People's Radio, who nobody tries to hear. I'm here with my comrades who are also representing voices that are never heard. My brother Leroy, representing.
Yes, people with disabilities, we gotta realize we're in the Bay Area, and one of the first community radio stations was licensed with a person with a disability. So we need to keep those voices going.
I say no more of the days of other people who are oblivious to the struggle, who comes into our communities with the cruel intentions of defying what the people's struggle is without the voices of the people.
Brother Y, naturalist and alleged war on drugs resistant fighter. My body, my rules. If you didn't put it in the earth, why are you taking it out? If you're not killing the earth, you're killing us. Whether you like it or not, you're one of us. Whether you believe it or not, you're one of us.
Mrs. Wheeler, Commissioner Wheeler, Joseph Bolden, Poor Magazine, we're global. I represent single-room occupancy people, and we need the internet just like everybody else. That's right. And also, that's the way it is. We all need connectivity.
So Poor Magazine, thank you. Poor Magazine is trying to get a radio station. We're a multi-nation, multi-racial, multi-generational community, and we teach youth, adults, and elders in poverty how to actually use media as a form of resistance, but also as a form of education. So when you talk about media literacy, when you talk about media justice, one of the most important things is who's being heard. And these airwaves are owned by corporations, and and they are stolen by endless, telecom companies. And what we're just trying to do is make sure that we are actually not only heard, but are actually utilizing the media as a form of education, resistance, and action. So
Thank you.
please check out Poor Magazine, Poor News Network. Thank you.
Can we give it up to everybody who testified tonight? Let's make some noise for folks who testified. I want to thank everybody who testified and all of you who wanted to testify. Again, a reminder, we have those sheets where you can write down your questions, your comments. We will hand deliver those to the FCC soon. I'm going to pass it off to my sister, Malkia Cyril.
All right. Give it up one more time. Beautiful night. Now, let me acknowledge what we all know. There are hundreds of people that wanted to speak tonight. Is that right? Yeah. A lot of people wanted to speak, and a lot of people did not get to speak. But guess what? That's why we build organizations. So tonight is not the last opportunity, because we are organizing not just today, but every day. So join an organization so you can go ahead and speak to the FCC, not just today, but tomorrow and the next day and the next. Can I get a witness? Yeah. All right, that's what we do in Oakland. We organize. So I have the great pleasure now of introducing Mr. Tom Wheeler. Now, here in this room, Oakland is a place where we love to protest, do we not? We love to protest. We live to protest. I grew up protesting. It's the first thing I ever did. Tonight, we're here to have a conversation. There will be a time when we will be outside confronting power. Tonight, we are here to share our stories so that we can begin to see what can be done. It's easy to fight. It's easy to yell. It's easy to resist, even when that's hard. It's easier than having a vision for what needs to happen and working towards that sometimes. So tonight, that's what we're about to do. We shared our stories, we spoke our truth, and now we have an opportunity to hear the 31st Chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, Tom Wheeler. Now, Brother Wheeler, I'm going to call you brother because that's what I do. Thank you. That's what I do. You in Oakland now.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Brother Wheeler, we are so honored that you came here today. Honored not because you're the chairman of the FCC, but because you're in a position with colleagues in Washington, D.C. to perhaps do something about the conditions that are affecting our communities. We understand that it's going to take all of us. We know that. And we understand that it's going to take partnership. But we also understand that we are not in the position of power you are. Right? We're not in the seat of power you are. Now, that said, we do got some power now, don't we? We got a little bit. We got a little bit. So we're going to come visit you in D.C. And we're not going to come to your house, though, unless you want to invite us for dinner or lunch or something like that. I'll come for that. But we'd love to hear from you what you thought about tonight's event. Your reactions and reflections on what you heard and what you think can be done. What are some steps that can be taken to really begin to address these concerns? So thank you, Mr. Tom Wheeler. Brother Wheeler, give it up.
Well, Malkia. Malkia, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. Chance, thank you. Amalia, where are you? There you are. And Commissioner Sandoval, who, I mean, you guys need to understand what a special person you have representing you on the CPUC in Commissioner Sandoval. She truly is, a leader and looked to throughout the country. This has been, yeah, you're right. This has been a great experience for me and a unique experience for me. I know a lot of you will find this really hard to believe, but I've sat in your seats a lot more than I've sat up here. I've stood in these lines a lot more than I've stood here listening and various things that I've done in my career and in my community. And I really appreciate how you, first of all, created this forum. And second of all, how you all shared your thoughts. This is a listening exercise for me. The the commission works in a way that I hope we can take advantage of. And that is that the processes are open in that anyone can provide comments, and we seek comments on all of the topics we discuss. But that's not enough. Do I need to shout? But that's not enough. And as I said to some of you earlier this evening, I'm now in my third month in this job, and I have yet to make an appearance in Washington, D.C. And that's why I'm here. I sat down ahead of time and said, okay, what are some of the goals that I want to make sure that we establish, and what are some of the early messages we want to send? And high on the list was get outside of Washington and listen to people other than the typical Washington players. And one of the things that empowers me to be able to say that and do that is that I was a typical Washington player. And so my goal now in my new job with my new responsibility is to learn by listening, is to take in the kinds of data points and information and passion that I heard tonight, and say, okay, what are you going to do about it? I'd love to sit here and say, okay, it's all solved. But I can't do that, and you wouldn't believe me if I did anyway. But I can tell you that I can internalize and have internalized what you have said. I've made note, every single person, I've got your name and I got what you talked about here. Mark Toney talked about how networks define us. And then Stephen Gong actually said he had read my speech talking about networks, which made me feel real good, of course. But I really do believe what the underlying theme of all of these presentations was, and that is that at this point in history, more than any other point in history, the networks that connect us are the networks that define us. And it's not just our economics, it's not just our commerce, it's our culture, it's our individual lives. And so that makes the job of the FCC incredibly important. And I take it incredibly seriously. Now, let me tell you a couple of things that we've done that I think address some of the things, or at least start down the road to addressing some of the things that you raised tonight. I am a big supporter of Lifeline. We are right now, and you know what really upsets me? What really upsets me, and for Video Relay Service, where's the gentleman from Purple, from Video Relay Service? What really upsets me about programs like Lifeline and Video Relay Service, which are the American people coming together through their government to do things that need to be done to help other Americans, and then they are abused by people who step up and engage in fraudulent activities, that one, the fraud is bad, but two, the effect of the fraud on the people who deserve the program is outrageous. And we're not going to put up with it, because that kind of crap gets in the way of doing the kinds of things that programs like this were intended to do, ought to do, and is our job to make sure they do. So we're doing trials also, because the idea of Lifeline for broadband is a legitimate concept, and we've got to figure out how to make it work. You talked a lot about media ownership and concerns about media ownership, and who did the last commentary on that, the lady talking about the 50%. Here it is, Sarah Steffens, talking about 50% of the journalists who have been laid off. One of the first things we did in the new commission is to do away with the proposed rule change that eased the cross-ownership restriction so that companies could merge more. That in an arcane way that only the lawyers would understand, but stay tuned, there were a couple of references in a couple recent decisions in which we've said we're going to do things differently going forward on these, what were called shell corporations, up here in one of the presentations. And we're going to look at that differently. Prison phones. First of all, Chairwoman Mignon Clyburn, God bless her. Okay, she's the lady that deserves everybody's applause. For 10 years, this issue sat around the commission, and Mignon says, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I'm the chairwoman while I wait for this guy Wheeler to get confirmed by the Senate, and I'm going to do something about it. And she did. And you know what? They sued us. And we're going to fight them in court because it's the right thing to do. Karen Gonzalez, where are you? Did she leave? Was it? No, Karen Gonzalez, who had that incredible story of calling and talking to her son, and $3,000 it had cost her. You know, I'm never going to forget that story. I'm glad I was here tonight. I like to listen to all of you. Sarah, or Karen, I'm carrying that story with me, because I get telephone calls from sheriffs and from congressmen representing sheriffs saying, oh, you're doing terrible things because this cross-subsidy that used to be on the back of prisoners, we can't afford to pay for, and then they list, you know, new uniforms and all kinds of things like this that were being paid for in the back of prisoners and prisoners' families. And that was wrong, and Mignon Clyburn solved it. Mignon Clyburn attacked it, and we're going to stand firm for that in the court appeal. And finally, I'm getting held up the sign that says, hey, bozo, it's time to shut up. But let me just say one thing. This one actually doesn't say, it's much more succinct. It says, stop. But one last thing. A lot of talk about the transition to the new digital internet protocol network. The design of the telephone companies was, well, we're going to go to this new technology, and that means that all the rules that applied to the old technology don't apply anymore. And we said, no, there is such a thing as what we are calling the Network Compact. And the Network Compact says that for 150 years, since Alexander Graham Bell, and actually since Theodore Vail created the modern AT&T, but since that period of time, there has been a set of values and the relationship between consumers and the networks that serve them. And those values are not just going to go poof because somebody has come up with a new technology for delivering those messages. And the challenge that we're going to face, and it's a non-trivial challenge, and Gigi Sohn here, who my valued colleague on this, that we're going to have to be fighting through in dealing with is how do you make sure that the values that we've come to expect, the kind of things that you were talking about today, apply going forward in the new network technology on behalf of consumers, on behalf of competition, on behalf of the kinds of things that I was hearing about tonight. And I happen to think that that's important for the growth of these new networks, because I intend to turn around to the folks who want to build these networks, and I think they should, and I'm a proponent of the new technology and the opportunities for diversity of voices and other kinds of activities that the new technology provides. But I'm going to turn around to them and say, folks, if you want incentives to grow these networks, then you got to make sure you uphold the compact. Because why in the world is anybody ever going to subscribe to your service if they can't make a 911 call? Why in the world is anybody going to ever subscribe to your service if there's some kind of preferential treatment given to somebody else? Why is somebody ever going to subscribe to your service if they can't interconnect with other networks? Why is somebody going to subscribe to your service if there isn't access both to the network and in terms of the geographic scope of the network and also in getting on the network in the open internet kind of concepts? And those are the kind of challenges that we're going to be fighting. And I just want to say that I appreciate you all coming out tonight. It's 9 o'clock on a school night, and you all have stuck it out. I really appreciate you being here. I really learned a lot, and thank you, Oakland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Wheeler, Brother Wheeler, if I may, we thank you so much for being here with us. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we hope this is a regular practice. We hope you are able to get out of the Beltway and join us at community events all across the country. And to encourage you to do that, we have something for you this evening. We have some petitions. Signed by thousands of people all over the country who not only want you to get outside of the Beltway, but they want you to bring your colleagues at the FCC with you. We would love to see the full commission join us in communities across the country. And so finally, before we wrap things up this evening, I just want to say thank you to everyone here. Final shout out to my people in the overflow room. You can follow them online at #overflowroom. Everyone watching online. And thank you to everyone who shared your stories with us this evening. And thank you to all of the amazing volunteers tonight that helped out with the event. Please give them a round of applause. And this is an amazing night. Something happened here this evening. What you heard Chairman Wheeler say is that he's going to remember your stories and that he's going to take them with him and that he's learned from us. So give yourselves a round of applause because some change happened here this evening. And there is energy in this room that I know Oakland is going to carry forward in thoughtful and strategic and surprising ways going forward. And the last thing I want to do tonight is to acknowledge the amazing staff at the Center for Media Justice and Free Press. There are folks who have done amazing work There are people on the East Coast up late right now making sure that the live stream is working, and folks that gave up some time over the holidays to make tonight come together. But I would be remiss if I didn't recognize two very important people. You didn't see them on stage tonight, but in every aspect of this program, you felt them. You felt their leadership, you felt their thoughtfulness, you felt their thoroughness, and you felt their commitment. Amalia from the Center for Media Justice. Mary Alice from Free Press. I will tell you firsthand, tonight would not have been possible without them. So thank you, Oakland, and good night.